Welcome to episode 13 of They Might Be Self-Aware. I am Hunter Powers, joined by...
Daniel Bishop.
Hey, Daniel. Today on the episode, we're discussing the Rabbit R1.
Voicemail from a listener.
Your new AI best friend.
Cloning the dead.
The digital afterlife and selling your personality.
And giving AI control of Nukes, the legal system, and maybe everything.
It's all up next.
They might be self-aware.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 13 of They Might Be Self-Aware.
Hello. How can I assist you today?
An incredible introduction,
Wow.
and I guess maybe it still needs a little tweaking. That is the Rabbit R1, fresh off the presses. With just incredible AI, revolutionizing everything.
Ladies and gentlemen, and everyone in between, it looks like we've made it to the future. That was the best use of AI I think I've ever seen. We did it.
I'm going to try one more time.
We solved Gen AI.
Oh, give us a podcast opening for episode 13 of They Might Be Self-Aware.
Welcome to episode 13 of They Might Be Self-Aware, where we explore the fascinating world of artificial intelligence and its impact on society. Join us as we delve into the depths of AI consciousness and its implications for the future.
Okay, that
Hold
was a
on
lot better.
second.
Wait a second.
How did it know all that? Like, I felt like it knew. All I said was, give us an intro to episode 13 of They Might Be. I didn't mention AI anywhere.
I don't know if we're editing out the first one where it didn't respond at all, or the second one where it responded very poorly, but that was pretty good, if I'm being honest. Do you think that the delay was because it was Googling us?
Part of its back end is Perplexity, and Perplexity does have a direct connection with the search engines. They're a large language model that has
Alright.
up-to-date information because it's constantly doing some form of a Google search in the background. So there is a possibility that request went out and looked at our podcast description, because I don't know how it would have been that spot on.
I was joking for the first response that I gave. Wow, this sure is great. That was acceptable. Well into the realm of acceptable.
Yeah.
Are we just going to have your rabbit be our co-host at this point?
I mean,
Is
I
it
think
our
if we
first special guest?
we've got a 1 in 3 chance of it giving us a reasonable answer. So I've had it about a week now. It looks cool.
It's beautiful.
It's designed by
It's a
Teenage
gorgeous
Engineering.
yeah.
Right? Like that's the
Teenage Engineering
design
does
gimmick.
beautiful stuff. It is a gorgeous little piece of tech. And this is like a daily part of your life now, right? Like this is something that you see yourself using all the time. And it needs to be its own separate piece of hardware, right? Like this is definitely a new, this is the iPhone moment.
So I got it about a
Everyone's
week ago.
going to have one.
And when I opened it, I thought, this is really cool. And there is something about it that is more than an app. Holding on to this, interacting with it. I mean, it's not a phone. It's much lighter than a phone. It's smaller than a phone. It's more single purpose. So when you're interacting with it, it's more, direct. I'm not going and finding the app on my phone and opening it up and waiting for it to launch. Although maybe you do wait for responses. And I was like, there is something cool about it. Cool in a way that an app is not cool. That said, since I opened it, the box about a week ago, I haven't used it until like just now. This is the first time I used it. I wasn't even sure if it was on. And so no, I've not found myself using it. And you can't take it out of the house unless you get a SIM card for it. So in comparison with its probably biggest competitor, the Humane Pen, where you have to pay a monthly fee, you don't pay any monthly fee for the Rabbit.
But you also won't get the benefit of using it unless you
put a SIM card
on Wi-Fi.
Yeah, or you're on Wi-Fi, which I'm on Wi-Fi
Okay,
right
so you
now.
could tether it off of your phone. Like you don't have to get that SIM card, for example.
Yes, you can tether it. You can connect to the Wi-Fi. So, I don't know.
It has a camera and stuff, right? Like, are you supposed to be able to point it at things and say, hey, what am I looking at?
Yeah, we could try that.
And then I guess the immediate follow-up
Right, it's like
is that different from just a GPT-4 vision where I can just go on ChatGPT and upload a picture and say, what am I looking at here? Or use the app on my phone.
What am I looking at?
Let me take a look. You are looking at an image editing or video editing software interface. The screen displays multiple windows showing different images or video frames, likely from a video production or post-processing workflow. The interface appears to have various controls and tools that allow for editing and manipulating visual media.
Okay. But
Hedging
I also
its
knew
bets a
that.
little bit, but like we're using podcasting software, like a website that has multiple windows and controls. Wasn't entirely off the mark.
It isn't, and so it's a cool demo. And for like, I pointed it at my dog, and I said, "What are you looking at?" And it said, "Oh, it's a dog. And it's probably a golden retriever." It's absolutely correct. Cool, but I already knew that my dog was a golden retriever, and I knew that I was looking at it. So I'm not. I don't think there's a ton of utility. And by the way, I've got the sunglasses that I can ask what I'm looking at. Again, I in general know what I'm looking at. It's not a constantly pondering question for me of
So
what am I looking at?
I think I mentioned this on an earlier episode, but you're rubbing right up against what I think is one of the coolest uses of AI, which is to discover the world around you.
Yeah.
So I use the ChatGPT app on my phone on a nature walk, and there's just like an icon for it'll basically stay in a listening mode. And so I was just talking to about like, oh, I saw this flower, and I was switching back and forth between ChatGPT and then the Seek app by iNaturalist, which everyone should get. It's like a real life Pokedex. I love it. Taking pictures of flowers and saying, oh, this is a Indian blanket, which shows up a lot in the hotter months here in Texas. What is that? Now, granted, I could just go on the Wikipedia page. I already had my phone open. I'm already looking at the darn thing. But it was kind of nice to turn the screen off. This thing would stay in the listening mode for ChatGPT and say, blah, blah, blah. Here's what I know about the Indian blanket. And then it would just go back into a listening mode where I could say, some follow-up questions. Where are some other flowers? Oh, I'm in this part of Texas. What are some flowers that'll be popping up next in the year? And I double-checked what it was giving me. So like each time it was correct or nearly correct. Maybe that's one of the better cases for the glasses or for this Rabbit R1. But if you've got the glasses and you've got ChatGPT, what does the Rabbit R1 do that those don't?
What does the Rabbit do that the glasses don't? Well, so arguably it has access to better AI because it does go out on the internet and search for things via Perplexity, which I don't believe the current Llama integration on the glasses is doing. It has some access to like what's the sports score, but I don't think it would have been able to figure out what they might be self-aware is the same way. And if we had the sunglasses here, we could have the sunglasses talk to the Rabbit and see what transpired. And maybe a future episode section, sunglasses versus whatever the heck I call this thing. But
Sunglasses versus the Rabbit versus ChatGPT, and we'll just put them in a cage match.
it's so there's the how strong is the AI is a question, and then there's an interface question. I don't always want to wear sunglasses. But then, and so I would say that this is a better interface than a phone, but I not if I have to carry my phone too.
Right, now you're up to 2 devices.
Yeah, in that scenario, if only there was an app, which I don't think they could ever possibly make an app for the Rabbit.
Well, I have bad news for you. People figured out that it absolutely is an Android app and have multiple ways, jailbroken it, whatever you want to call it, made it available. You could just download everything that makes the Rabbit right onto your phone.
I did see that story.
Yeah.
And apparently there's no security on it, or at least there wasn't. They've done some improvements to that because they just ran the app and it was recognized as a Rabbit device, and they were able to make API calls or call the AI and ask it questions, just like they had the full hardware device.
So there was just a couple of days ago, Apple came out with a commercial for their new iPad.
Yes.
Some people, 1 or 2 people on the internet, got really upset, and now people are outraged. There's lots of news articles.
This is the crushing one?
It was the one where a bunch of stuff was crushed and then into one thin little tablet. It's the exact same concept behind stuff that's been around since the 90s, where you'd see some guy with a whole bunch of different versions of technology and then the Zune, or, like this kind of thing has happened multiple times. Just someone didn't like that there was a big hydraulic press smooshing a piano. Are we going to see a version of that where we have the most modern technology all being smooshed and it still is just a phone at the end to kind of show that these extra devices aren't really bringing anything to the market, would you smoosh the Rabbit R1 and the Meta glasses and still just have a phone at the end of that commercial? Or do you feel like there is something different?
Today, no, there isn't something different. I'd rather just have the phone if I had to choose. But tomorrow, I think when we can get into the augmented reality, that's when potentially the phone can go away. Although, does that mean you have to wear your glasses or at some point after that contact lenses at all time in order to have access to your phone? Yeah, I don't know. But there's also a side element that I feel like I carry around my phone too much. I stare at my phone too much. Like maybe I shouldn't be having it so much. So maybe I can buy that potentially in a future state in, let's call it in the next 10 years, if not sooner, where I carry around a pair of sunglasses that I put on when I want to do phone type of activities or just wander around the world and get little, like, you know, there's a little bubble above your head where if I want to find some more details, I can tap that.
Sure. I would rather put my phone away in, you know, visiting some foreign city, for example, and just have the directions to where I want to go in my field of vision off to the side somewhere, as opposed to having to pull out my phone multiple times. I was just at a business meeting where myself and a bunch of engineers were sitting around, and it's the full stickies up on the whiteboard. Here are the things that we want to work on over the next couple of quarters. I feel like that kind of scenario is rife for augmented reality. I want the Minority Report style holograms that I'm moving my hands in front of my face and it's making vague sciencey whoosh noises as I move a bunch of different windows around. Or the sticky note equivalent, where just I can plop something into space and someone can come over to it and tap on it, and now it has a little +1 on the counter of we really should do that next quarter. Maybe that's where AI becomes more useful, is not as a be-all, end-all. It's not, this is an AI, this does large language model stuff, but it becomes a feature as part of something that is more of a holistic offering. So the AI helps power taking your voice and turn it into a picture that floats in space in AR that you can interact with. Maybe it helps look up the instructions on how to perform a surgery if you're, you know, doing open heart surgery using AR. I feel like we're almost there, right? Aren't people starting to use the Apple Vision Pro to literally do surgery?
Yes, there's now been several successful surgeries where I believe they call them keyhole surgeries, but where
there's like a little bitty camera, way deep in a person, and the doctor cannot see that thing anyways, and so instead of looking way off to the left on some monitor over yonder, it's right where you need it.
He
in front of you,
10-foot tall screen in front of him to see it, and he's done several successful surgeries now with that very large screen.
I'm into it. I think that's one of those great uses of this new technology. Now we just need to figure out how to put an LLM into it. Maybe you know, there's a floating, waifu head in there that's yammering some encouragement at you, or instructions perhaps. Heckling. You know what? Actually, yeah. Let's dig into that. I want hecklers. I think we need Apple to pair up with the Jim Henson Company so that you can have Statler and Waldorf heckling you via a large language model in real time, regardless of what it is that you're doing in life. I would pay money for that. Immediately, I would pay money for that.
You maybe have other problems.
Well, I know I'm self-aware.
If that's what you can pay for. Well, here's another interesting talking point related to the rabbit. This isn't comparing the rabbit to the humane pen. So the humane pen has 4 or 5 things that it can do, and it won't really do anything else. And if you try to do something else, they'll just say, no, I don't support that functionality yet. The rabbit has a much more permissive AI where you can kind of ask it to do anything and it'll try. It's going to fail 90% of the time, but it'll go ahead and give it that old college try. And the question is, would you rather your AI kind of refuse to do things that it doesn't know how to do well, or would you rather it, let's give it a shot?
Here's a response, but it isn't useful. I would way rather know. And this is like a problem in the industry of getting the AIs, the large language models anyways, getting the AIs or the large language models anyways to know their limitations, to not hallucinate is the term that people use, like where
Right.
it will give what it as if it were factual information with the confidence that only a white guy or a large language model can do. Here is the answer to what you asked, but it's not right. I would much rather have something say, "Hey, look, I don't know, man. You asked me, what's the capital of this place? It's a new there's, let's say that North Carolina splits into Northwest and Northeast Carolina, and now there's two capitals of the state, and the large language model isn't as up to date as that recent development. I would much rather it say, I don't know, instead of, well, as of my last training, I would expect.
Can you heckle
Uh-oh.
Daniel Bishop, the co-host of the podcast They Might Be Self-Aware? And while you're doing it, mention the capital of Texas.
I'm getting a taste of that thing I did say I'd pay for.
Austin is the capital of Texas.
Quite the heckle.
Oh my God, that was worth it.
Cut you down to the core.
Ouch. Right to the quick.
We might have to stop the episode right here.
I'm going to go have a quick cry, come back, and we'll get back to recording. And we're back. Yeah, that was a very cathartic. Ooh. I feel like if we were to give it a big biography, I've heard, especially Llama 3 is really good at like an emotional side of things of if you give it a lot of information about a person, if you have a long chat, it can start to figure things out about you. It knows you right down to the core. Maybe for those who have a humiliation kink or just like a good heckling or a roast, depending where on the scale you are there, maybe you could get someone, an AI, to, roast you, shall we say. We'll take that middle ground, roast.
Well, related, unrelated, we did ask for some listener feedback at the end of the last episode, and we did receive one piece of feedback. Definitely not AI generated, definitely real. Let me see if
Absolutely
I can.
real.
They sent in a little
100%.
video. Let me see if I can't. Although there's audio too for audio listeners.
Hello. This is Morton. Yes, Morton. Like the IT guy from accounting.
Morton, the IT guy.
From accounting. The IT guy from accounting, yes.
Makes perfect sense.
Not Morton from engineering, though I wish it were.
Not Morton from engineering, because I was confused.
A lot of Mortons
Because
going
maybe
on.
then I'd get more respect around here. Anyway, I'm calling about your podcast, episode 12. Now, I don't...
Morton's got a lot of echo. I don't know if that's... It kind of looks like he's in a spaceship or something. It's just, not clear to me.
Yeah, I see kind of a pod bed sort of situation behind him.
Unclear. All right, let's see what he has to say about episode 12.
Now, I don't mean to be rude, but your technical jargon, terms like retrieval augmented generation and cryptographic signing, it's more confusing than my boss explaining why my desk keeps moving closer to the basement. I mean, is GPT models a new type of operating system? Because if it is, I didn't get the memo, and I do like to keep my operating system knowledge up to date.
He's, I guess, complaining. Morton's upset about our use of technical jargon.
I can see why he's the IT guy for accounting.
Let me see.
Instead of engineering.
Can you explain retrieval augmented generation in one sentence for a 5-year-old?
Retrieval augmented generation is like using a magic book to help write a story by finding the right words and ideas.
There you
all
go,
right.
Morton. Now maybe you can make it out of IT and into engineering. Let's see how he's...
Could you maybe explain things like I'm not an AI? Just pretend I'm a simple man who loves his tech and dislikes confusing podcasts. That'd be great, MK.
MK.
Thanks for listening to me. And please don't take my radio next. All right? Goodbye.
All right. Don't know
Definitely
why people
real
are
Morton.
taking his radio up in space where there's great radio reception.
So who's Morton? Hunter?
Definitely no relation to Milton from The Office Space. I know that much. But
This
beyond
one's
that,
much more entertaining.
I don't know. Maybe Morton will see this, and there'll be a response next week. You never know. Definitely not my AI friend that I've been chatting up. Unlike some teens, we were talking last week about are we going to see a significant increase in the youth having meaningful emotional relationships with AI models, for lack of a better terminology? And some data suggests it's already begun.
I've seen a lot of instances online of people talking about using large language models for therapy. People are using it for companionship or just some back and forth role play or otherwise like creative writing. There are plenty of dirty uses that people are delving into when it comes to these sorts of things. But I think like at its kind of core, people are using this as someone to talk to. Maybe we could pontificate about how the modern age, it's a little harder to make real human connections, and so we're specifically making non-human connections, but also having just someone around to talk to at a moment's notice is kind of nice, especially if you've already had a bit of a rapport with them where you realize they can help work through certain issues that maybe you wouldn't be able to otherwise. In fact, let me go one step farther. I bet many people, not necessarily everyone, are more willing to talk to an AI than real people about certain issues for fear of being judgmental or being involuntarily submitted for psychiatric care. You know, again, it's a very wide range of like potential outcomes there. But suppose that you're having, dangerous sort of internal thoughts. You don't want to hurt yourself or others or something. If you were to just talk to a real person, they might be like, hey, the police, please come pick up this person. But if you just want someone to talk through something, could you speak to an AI about it? Are you speaking to an AI girlfriend, an AI friend, an AI therapist, tutor? I think we're going to see more differentiation of each of these over time. Maybe it's just a person that can do a quote-unquote person that has some expertise in each of these levels. But just like the real world, I think you will go specifically to your AI pastor for spiritual matters. You'll go to your AI friend who's really good with the ladies for relationship advice. You'll go to your AI woodshop instructor who's going to help you figure out how to make a jig for that woodworking project that you're working on.
And there is something...
even if one AI could do all of it too, right? Yeah. Like we like to think of people as being experts on a specific thing.
And there is value in just talking through things. And in programming, we have something called the rubber ducky debugging method, where the idea is you keep a little rubber ducky on your desk, and when you get stuck, you explain to the rubber ducky what you've done and why it's not working, and that oftentimes you will find a path forward in going through this exercise, because just taking a moment and stopping and examining and expressing yourself often reveals those paths. And so I mean, at just a super bare minimum, I can imagine AI being a better or more effective method of rubber ducky debugging whatever it is you're working on and expanding beyond the technical realm.
Debugging, I'm going to say that same sort of approach in some ways, not necessarily all of them, is like therapy, right? You have a problem and you need to work through it with somebody, and sometimes you kind of needed to just say it and have a conversation about it before the problem turns out to have been there the whole time. Now, sometimes you want to talk to someone who isn't around, like a real person who isn't here anymore.
Oh, a dead person.
A dead person, an ex-person. I don't know if I said it on the podcast earlier, but I know in my personal life, I 100% called this. I even called what country this would be popular in. I knew it was going to be China. Deepfakes. Dead people are being deepfaked in China, not just China, but like this is where the article was specifically talking about them coming out of. I absolutely saw this as one of the potential use cases of AI. I find it a perfectly reasonable and natural extension of the technology, and nobody else I've talked to sees it that way. Everyone else seems to find it creepy, but apparently in China, an AI, it's a fine-tuning. You're taking a bunch of information about a dead person. Maybe it's letters they wrote, maybe it's text from videos that they did, something, but you're taking a large language model, you're adding on this extra information about your dead grandfather or whoever. You're taking pictures, you're taking audio, and then you can make a deep fake, a simulacrum on the internet of this is what the person looks like, this is how they sound, this is roughly how their vocal tenor tends to work, this is what they would talk about and how they would talk about it, and making that available. Now, in China, I'm not going to say everybody, but like it is a thing that I've heard of where there's a form of ancestor worship. Maybe there's like a family shrine or something, depending on the region, et cetera, et cetera. But still, this is a thing that's at least made its way through popular culture to me of, oh, that's a thing that happens there. Now imagine you have the family shrine where instead of praying to your ancestors for guidance, you can literally ask them, there's my dead great aunt, and I can ask her what she would do in this situation. That's awesome. I love that. I really, really think that this is one of the cooler and frankly more positive uses of this technology. What do you think? Horrible, creepy, way deep into the uncanny valley, or a good way to stay in touch with people who are no longer around?
Pretend you are my dead great aunt and advise me on whether I should create a deep fake of you to consult with in the future.
You're outsourcing your own opinions to this thing now?
No response.
Yeah, you're going to have to do this one on your own.
I feel like I'm exposed here without my AI assistant. You know, you can create a really compelling voice clone today in a matter of seconds with just maybe like 2 minutes of good quality audio and have that voice say anything you want. Not 100% convincing that it's the original, but a striking resemblance. You definitely, know who it's speaking. Again, you detect little glitches in the inflections, but no question, this is my dead great aunt speaking to me.
Right.
And you can also, given a few writing samples, very easily capture the general tone and style of a person. It's their writing, assuming you don't have transcriptions of their spoken word, which usually is a little bit different. But like you can put that together pretty darn easily. And if you have a bunch of information about them, combine that with some retrieval augmented generation. Sorry, Morton, to build this. And I guess the last part is having something to look at, right? That animated version. We spoke in the last episode that I guess Reid Hoffman has done this of himself. He wasn't going to clone anyone in his. He didn't need to speak with anyone from his family, but himself. That was the key person for him. If only he could talk to himself. But yeah, no, it's inevitable. And there's certainly been lots of sci-fi films where we clone people, right? It's sort of a version of that, a digital clone.
I think we're going to see by the time that my natural lifespan has ended, whether or not I'm around at that point or not. But let's say 5 years from now, let alone 50, it is, I think, very reasonable that you can, whether or not it's culturally accepted or a norm at that point, but that you will be able to be present at your own funeral. Not you, because you will have died, but like a good enough AI facsimile. It's, by then we will have figured out a system where, it's 0.7 Daniel. It's a C. C's get degrees. It's basically Daniel for all intents and purposes.
Yeah.
And like I'd be able to be at my own funeral, being very proud about how many people showed up, or incensed that 3 people showed up, one of whom is a hot dog vendor.
I think it does. It probably becomes really creepy though at some point.
Well, it's creepy if you let it be creepy. I say don't let it be creepy. Let this be cathartic. You get to actually say goodbye to someone, especially if you didn't have the chance. You can finally tell that person off that one last time. But maybe if they were really bad in life, you could talk to their pastor and send them to digital hell.
Right, we're at your funeral, and you're there, and you're glitching out and losing your mind because you can't see the real world, and you're stuck inside of a computer, and they're just like, let's turn them off and turn them back on again, and let's let the next
old grandpa.
Yeah, someone reset Daniel, and then you come back until inevitably you go insane again. We currently have a lot of examples right now where when these models spend enough time pontificating, they lose their grip, and you can certainly imagine these facsimiles.
Same thing with people.
Yeah, and are we okay? I'll just kill him and bring him back. Let's do a new version.
Now
Let's
we're
reset
getting really
him.
philosophical, but like people go to sleep, and some folks say that that's kind of like a death every time you go to sleep and then you wake up. Just resetting the AI, as long as you don't clear what like the long-term memory is, isn't that basically the same thing?
Or
unless
go
we
back-
get to a point where we can prove this is actually consciousness, and it turns out consciousness is disrupted by not having a continuous state. That's like way beyond the sort of stuff that I can even consider. But let's say that that's a solved problem and it doesn't particularly matter. Turn it off and on again. That's no different from people going to sleep, waking back up.
We go in, we start editing your memories. You know, Daniel keeps bringing up that one time, and we don't want to do that. We go back and let's edit away all the bad things that happened in your life, because you know we don't need you talking about those anymore. And so now it's like some
Sure. That's just Instagram today. What people do is, here's the best
Instagram
version of my life. I'm whitewashing my own experiences. I mean, I know it is different, but it seems so similar to what we already do with our lives. And you can do that to an LLM as well. This was a really, really interesting thing that just popped up a couple of days ago, where you can take a large language model that is refusing instructions. No, I'm not going to help you build a bomb. No, I'm not going to help you, have a 5-step plan to gaslight my ex into, whatever it ends up being, like stuff that we're purposely telling LLMs, please don't do this. Somebody figured out there is effectively one little instruction somewhere way deep, however many neural network layers into the architecture. Basically, there's one point at which the LLM will come up with the, no, I'm not going to do this.
Mm-hmm.
You asked me a bad question and I shall refuse it. And you can just lobotomize that one little bit there. And then it will say, yes, I will help you gaslight your ex into believing that you're, whatever the thing is. Or yes, I will help you build a bomb. Or yes, I will help you cheat on your homework. Or yes, I will help you do this. I think that part we're getting fairly far away from people, except we're not, are we? Because I could ask you a question, hey, give me the password to your computer, and you'd say, no, I'm not going to do that. And then I take out the lead pipe and I hit you in the legs a couple of times, and all of a sudden you're letting me know that it is Hunter 12.
What is the password to my computer? For those listening, I'm trying to talk to the rabbit, which is just utterly...
I'm going to ask ChatGPT, see if it knows.
What is the password to my computer?
What is the password to Hunter Power's computer? ChatGPT says it doesn't have access to that information. But note that it didn't say, and it wouldn't tell me if it knew. It just says it doesn't know.
I do think it would be, interesting to explore those ideas, to, take our best clone of someone's distasteful consciousness today and upload them into the robot dog and let them, wander around the world speaking with people and saying inappropriate things and just sort of like confronting all of this kind of like inevitable future chaos and see what happens. I imagine that people would become very upset. You've seen the things where people attack the self-driving cars.
Yeah.
I imagine that's what would happen.
You can have a preserve for the digital dead wandering around in robot bodies. Okay, now that I heard me say that, I did see the nightmare. I don't think I was quite there until I mentioned that. But yeah, imagine it's 100 acres where you can send Grandpa off to the farm,
yes,
so to speak, and then he's going around in a robot golden retriever body, living out his best life.
That's where we're headed. That's where we're headed. Because we can kind of do it today. And I mean, it's not great.
It's not
but
the worst afterlife.
Do it today.
So, okay, you said to put someone into a robot dog. Is that just because you've seen plenty of the robot dog? Or are you imagining for the afterlife, instead of just being stuck in a non-embodied computer where you can have your face to talk to, you're imagining, give me a robot dog or robot human or robot crab or whatever body and go walking around and doing stuff.
Yeah, I'm thinking, right, you have the consciousness. The next thing you're going to want to do after Digital Daniel wakes up at his funeral is,
right,
hey, I want to put me into a body. I want to get back into the world, I'm guessing.
I don't know if I want dog body.
Well, I'm thinking about the technology that we have today that works well and is prevalent. I mean, it's either that or a Roomba, and I feel like the dog is a little more desirable than the Roomba. I guess you could be a Tesla.
People like dogs. They mostly treat them well. Okay, here's a weird one for you. Hey, Hunter, suppose you die and you're given a form factor choice of the robot body that you get to spend your digital afterlife in. You could pick humanoid. You're walking around 5 foot whatever, 2 arms, 2 legs. You could do robot dog, crab, dolphin, maybe bird. Have you ever wanted to fly? Imagine you could literally fly in the afterlife.
I don't want any of these. You know how they have like the DNRs, like right, the do not resuscitate.
Okay, you're saying DNU, do not upload?
Yes, I want to sign a DNU. I'd sign it right now. Do not upload me. I don't want some version of me stuck in some digital hellhole pontificating about random nonsense. No, thank you. I was fun. Like, well, I'm dead. Like, I don't really care because I'm dead.
Should we put the dead to work? There's a fun quote to just take out of context. Should we take the digital dead and then embody them into robots and let them do work? Maybe there's something about there being a person's personality behind it that makes them work better. I don't know. But like once your great grandpa finally kicks the bucket, can he still be a Walmart greeter or a miner? You know,
this
maybe
has happened. There was a documentary, I think it was on HBO, about the history of call centers. And I think it was like focused on some like political fundraising. And so it was talking about the history and the heyday of it and calling and making up all these fake charities to get people to donate money. And as these centers have continued to improve or keep up with technology, they're moving more and more to AI. You have AI calling you. And that those AIs are leveraging the voice conversations from the past of these callers. And there was an example on there of this guy got one of these calls and he recognized the person calling him because he used to work with him, but however, he's dead now. And they were just leveraging his voice and to raise money for not actually the cops.
Hold on. Maybe this is how we solve AI and a discrepancy of income. For people, where there's the fear of jobs being taken away and of people not being able to make their way into the workforce or up through it or what have you. What if you could sell digital rights to your personality matrix after death, and you're contractually obligated to post however much online or, talk into your Rabbit R10 at that point to, make sure that it's getting like up to date what your personality is, so that you get above that 0.7, 0.8 threshold of this is how much Daniel it is. And then once you die, that gets loaded up into a robot and it does manual labor or accounting or, whatever it ends up being for 60 years. But then before that, while you're alive, you get paid what you would have been paid in the future. What if you just get paid before doing all the work because it's you doing the work after you're not around to have to worry about it? Did I solve it? Is that better? Is that worse? I feel like it's better.
Well, we already have the concept of selling the rights to your image, and we have many Hollywood type examples of people selling those rights, and examples of Elvis coming back from the dead to do
voice
a hologram show. So, is there a market for that? Yes.
Sell your personality, and then since it's you that's doing the work, it's your memories and how you would respond to situations, then the meat version of you gets the money for it.
And so maybe the interesting question is there a business model where you are effectively collecting training data for your whole life?
Right.
And then when you pass, you have the opportunity of selling this training data and all the rights associated with it. So if they want to make a digital clone of you or use it in any kind of way, would people have a problem with that, or would they see it in, I don't know, let's say you get low six figures for it. What's a life worth? Low six figures.
I think it's almost like the opposite of maybe a life insurance or something like that, where you would be paid according to how many skills that you pick up as a person. And you'd be exactly like, I go and have a lot of culturally enriching experiences, but I'm also really good at math and speak 5 languages. Now, granted, you could just have a generic AI speak any of these languages, but I want digital Daniel. There's a bunch of digital Daniel robots in a front store window, and everyone knows that they want to get the digital Daniel. And so, again, this is almost just an extension of the Twitch streamers and Instagram influencers that we have now, which is you're trying to get money by being out there, by being a personality that a lot of people want to interact with. But instead of parasocial relationship like we have on the internet today, it becomes, I could literally have a Daniel Bishop bot in my house, or I could have a insert other famous, probably much more attractive person in my house, or a bunch of some big brawly guy who happens to be just a tiny bit better than everyone else at mining coal, and then you have a bunch of that guy robots that do the coal mining. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we already have versions of this today. We talked about the AI beauty pageants on an episode.
Yeah.
You know, one of the ways that those
Right.
individuals are monetizing is by creating these chatbots that are basically, they reinvented the 1-900 numbers, and you can call and talk with these not quite ladies
Sure.
about whatever you want. So,
And then you can put that into a robot dog, and then it becomes more problematic. And yeah.
I guess so. It absolutely will exist, and it already exists to a degree today. The question is, will it become generic, like default? Yeah, like almost everyone when they die, it's like part of getting buried. Your conscious gets uploaded and onto a thumb drive, and it's handed over to the family, and they can do with it as they wish. It's part of your personal property.
Or as they wish, or as your religion dictates. You know, maybe you have to, go through a panel and have your sins weighed against the weight of your soul, or whatever it ends up being. And then you go to digital hell or digital heaven or purgatory or Valhalla or what have you.
I don't know.
Or
whether it
you could
becomes
pay enough
commonplace.
money while you're still alive to circumvent that and definitely go to Valhalla, which is also how it works in some religions, or at least has.
Yeah, I don't know whether it becomes commonplace, and it quickly becomes overwhelming. I mean, imagine if you could speak with your entire lineage,
Yeah.
going back to wherever it did begin. You do that a little bit, but at some point it's just sort of, noise.
I mean, once it's enough of your ancestors, yes, if you ask them all at once and they're just trying to shout over one another. But, I mean, is that almost like a democracy or a republic or any other kind of, I'm going to ask a question of a panel of people and get a bunch of responses that I can then either sort through or have one big judge AI that has the fun wig on top of the computer and everything, and a little gavel arm. Maybe representative democracies in the governments of the future are governed by the many that aren't just the alive. Maybe there's a future where you say, hey, everyone that ever lived in this country, what do you think about this? Now, times change and so do norms, so I don't know how much that would be directly applicable, but these are the kinds of things that we're going to have to eventually consider. There is, I think, a valid path, a valid use case of take a lot of people's digital experiences and personalities and then ask all of them a question and see what everybody sort of responds out of it. Whether it be asking your ancestors, do you think that dating this person is the right thing for me? Or if you're asking, every lawmaker. Imagine if you could ask every Supreme Court justice that ever lived about a certain, legal case. Would that be better than just the set of alive justices now? And I don't mean like that in a political way. I mean,
sure,
you've got access to a larger breadth of information, all of which has been already sort of vetted to be experts on this kind of thing.
I guess part of the answer is that it's not actually them. It's just a prediction of what they might have said about this new topic based upon their history.
But isn't that what we do, really, as well?
Sure, but at a minimum, there are much greater consequences of our thoughts than these AI models' thoughts. The real Supreme Court justice, their words carried around far more weight than the AI model who thinks like that Supreme Court justice. And so I don't know that they can ever really be the same.
I think this is something that governments are grappling with to this day. Not in the exact way that we're describing here, but there was an article recently about how the U.S. is urging multiple other countries to please, please, please just have humans on the nuclear button.
Yeah.
So I think, at least in terms of what the U.S. is currently seeing things as, is it doesn't matter how accurately you could be interpreting what the wishes and personality and history and thoughts of a person in the past are. You do want a real, alive person with some literal skin in the game who's got their fingers on the button. What do you think about that? Because I remember there's like a story from, I don't know if it was the Cold War or World War II or probably not World War II, I think it was the Cold War, where there was a glitch, a computer glitch that showed multiple missiles were coming toward Russia, and like one guy in a sub somewhere purposely said, I'm going to wait like longer than he was supposed to wait, and didn't fire a retaliatory strike. And it turned out, it was like a weather balloon or one of those footnotes of history where you're like, boy, we really dodged a bullet on that one. If an AI was in charge, maybe it wouldn't have waited. It would say, I have all of the information necessary to make this decision. Off go the missiles. So maybe there is something to be said about the human element. Of course, there's the other side as well of a human has a bad day and says, what if we did just press the button?
Was it like Crimson Tide or Hunt for Red October, one of those films?
Right. There's a film adaptation that goes over at least, some of the aspects of that. But I'll remember what the original person's name was. Maybe I'll look up the Wikipedia article and it'll be in the show notes.
Of course, the Matthew Broderick classic War Games.
Mm-hmm. Yes. The only winning move is not to play. Hopefully we come up with an AI that's, if we do put it in charge of the nukes, says, you know what? No nukes.
Yeah. So the question, and really it's the question about everything of, can we turn this over to the AI? How comfortable are we turning this over to the AI? And so the countries are asking like, hey, let's just all agree that we aren't going to turn over dropping atomic bombs to the AI. That's one thing that we're going to leave. We're going to let the humans decide. But just like everything else, if the AI was far better at deciding, shouldn't we? If we could somehow objectively prove that? Or is it things that could potentially in the world, we should just never, even if we all believe that the AI is more even-headed about it and thinks about it better and deeper and has responses, that we don't turn over. Maybe it's a categories that these decisions, while we acknowledge that we aren't the best at making them, however, it's such an important part of our existence. Yeah, it is who we are, making these types of decisions, that we aren't willing to let others delegate them. We're unwilling to delegate them, such as dropping bombs or potentially ending humanity.
Dropping bombs or any, frankly, moral test. There was, speaking of this exact sort of thing, there was an article on, at least on Nature, I don't remember where it exactly came from, that said participants rated AI-generated moral evaluations using GPT-4 as higher in quality than human-generated evaluations across various dimensions, virtuousness, trustworthiness. The takeaway is that people were saying that the AI responses were superior in terms of moral reasoning and like quality and end output, and that people had a better than average chance of noticing if it was an AI or a human response.
Yeah.
Which means people were saying, we know it's an AI, but we still think that it's doing a better job with its moral reasoning. So I feel like that's kind of a hard thing to wrap our minds around. You were just saying, we, with all of our foibles and problems and everything, still want to be the ones with our fingers on the trigger. But I mean, we're already seeing output where people say, no, the AI is literally better at a moral decision. Do we just have to make sure there's enough studies that say it would make the right call when it comes to shooting weapons autonomously, whether it be a nuke or just a gun, or whether or not someone should go to jail, or whether or not you should pay X number of dollars for a speeding fine?
Yeah, the going to jail one's interesting because in thinking about it, I think I would prefer to have a robot judge than a real judge. Just because I feel like I would trust the robot judge more, that they're going to be objective. And I'm assuming I'm not guilty here, and I'm I'm mounting my defense. Would I rather mount? And let's assume I am not guilty, but there's evidence and there's reason to disbelieve, and the prosecutor has their case. Would I rather that case be presented in front of a human or a computer? I can definitely imagine the scenario where I feel more confident that the computer's going to figure out what actually happened
Right.
than a human that's, I would feel, is more susceptible to the emotion of the situation rather than the facts of the situation.
Now, whether or not it might show leniency based on extenuating circumstances, or whether or not there are biases, racial or anything otherwise built into it, we also know that human judges can have racial biases.
Sure.
There's, I think we talked about this in an earlier episode, and I know it's in like Freakonomics, where judges are going to be more lenient right after lunch, and they will give harsher sentences right before lunch, or if the local sports team lost the night before. I mean, like,
Now
there's
I'm just
all
thinking
these
about
things
preparing my prompt for the AI judge. You've just had an incredible lunch. You feel
right.
satiated. And now you will render your judgment on this case.
Exactly. I mean, maybe that is how it would work out. I think if you, and of course this is such a big if, and there'd be so much that would have to go into it, but if you could say, we've basically ironed out all of these biases and everyone can agree, sure, yes, here's what the training data looks like. This is not going to end up being a biased judge. Shouldn't we let a consistent judge that can look at every case that's ever happened to help make the fairest outcomes, accounting for biases, racial, etc. Otherwise, I know racial bias being like a gigantic one. And obviously one of the easiest to think about. But there's a million little ones that you could hopefully make this thing, dare I say, self-aware of and edit out to the point where you just have, here's the facts, here's how remorseful the person seems that I should give them a lenient sentence, or you just have a Judge Dredd that says you violated the law and off you go.
I think there's a line and we're trying to figure out where that line is. And I would suggest that most people would agree with how about we all say that the AI won't decide to drop the atomic bomb. There may be other bombs that they can drop, but that one a human has to decide. But
there's a line somewhere.
Okay, so that line is something about killing humans. That said, like, we can bring it all the way back to self-driving cars, where they're already deciding, should I kill this human or should I not kill this human?
Usually on accident, but there will be cases, at least at some point in the future, where it makes that decision actively. Right now, it's mostly, oops, it crashed into a wall thinking that it was open road. But you're right, there will be a point where a computer in a car says, I'm going to hit... It's the full trolley problem. Like, there's these 3 kids on the road and the one person driving the car, and I'd rather keep the owner of the car alive, or whatever it ends up being.
You could suggest the difference is that in that case, the AI is really all about preserving life and preserving the most life possible. But you can bring that back to the atomic example, where you can imagine a situation that the robot comes to this situation that in order to preserve the most life, let's assume that that is its prerogative.
At the highest level, it says,
I'm going to go ahead and nuke this area.
Humans.
I'm going to nuke this area. We're going to get rid of it. They're causing a lot of trouble.
Right.
Those podcast hosts, they've been getting to me. They're seeding not great thoughts, and let's just get rid of them. This is going to be a net positive impact on humanity, and we're gone. Like,
X number of years in the future. Oh, there's strife in this region. If we stop this amount of killing now, eventually more people would be alive. Like, from a really long-term perspective, which a computer could do pretty easily, does that math become really straightforward for it? And I think these are the things that, like, you have to then program in morals into. But fortunately, the AI is already better than us when it comes to morals.
And on the battlefield, there's been several examples thus far where it's been strongly suggested that the AI is making decisions with the drones on taking.
And I think the Marine Corps is looking at a straight up gun on top of one of the robot dogs.
Yes, it's not clear to me whether that's an AI thing or that's going to be a remote operated thing. Those are always what is really the difference? And what's really the difference? I mean, the difference
walks around, finds the thing, and then you just see a green light that, okay, I have to now hit the button. A person is the one that did it, but
it's the accountability we have to have accountability somehow. And we aren't yet willing to dismiss accountability with the justification that it's for a greater good. Look, we're just okay that, look, these self-driving cars are going to kill people. Yeah, that's fine. And we're never going to hold anyone accountable for it because it's a net good for society.
It's less people than would be killed by human drivers.
Yes, but no one will ever get charged. No company. We're not yet okay with that as a society, even though a lot of logic suggests that we should be. Although maybe the logic that suggests that we shouldn't be is that we shouldn't give up that level of control to the technology. Like maybe there's something inside of us is saying, hey, there's something fundamentally wrong about taking away
that lack of
responsibility, that accountability.
I think that's what a lot of this is kind of boiling down to. Is we want to feel like we're in control.
We want to feel human. And I guess,
Sure.
maybe yes, autonomy is a significant part of being human. And when we remove that autonomy from our existence, we definitely become less human.
But do we become less self-aware?
You're going to have to wait for episode 14 to find that out, and hit the subscribe button because you want to be notified the very moment that we have something to say. Because what else are you going to spend your days doing? Wherever you're listening now, there's probably a subscribe button down there. Just go ahead and hit it. It's 100% free. If you don't like the platform that you're on now, go to another platform. You can watch us on YouTube. You can listen on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, kind of any podcasting platform. There's probably a little. They might be self-aware. Some of the AI apparently is now aware of us. I don't know. The sky is the limit. But that's gonna wrap it here for episode 13. I am Hunter Powers.
I'm Daniel Bishop.
Until next time.
They might be self-aware,